Welcome back. I'm Helen.
I'm James.
And we are global nomads. And in 2024, we sold everything we owned to retire early and travel the world. Today, we wanted to talk about boredom or burnout. We've been traveling for just over a year now, full time, and we've done some fast travel and some slow travel. And we've been having quite a few discussions around which we prefer, which we find works the best. And so we wanted to have a little bit of a chat about that today.
What we want to do today is to talk you through the difference between boredom for us and burnout for us, what we've learned in the last 12 months and what we're going to be doing going forward so that we get an experience that fits better with our style. The first thing to remember is that everyone is different and there's no right or wrong answer. So this is just our experience and what's right for us, but it might not be right for you. What I would say to you is get as many other people's opinions on this subject as possible before you finalise your plans.
Nomading looks different for everybody. For us, I think we're just about finding our feet now. But we've talked about this before when we did our review on how we felt after 1 year of long-term travel. For me, it was the storage unit thing was always a big thing that I always felt like everybody would say, you shouldn't have a storage unit. We do, just a heads up, we do. And from the comments we got on that video, a lot of the rest of you were thinking of or already have a storage unit as well. For me, I don't think nomading has to be about losing 99% of everything that you have. For me, for us, it probably worked out to about, I'd say about 90% of what we had, we did get rid of, gave away, donated, whatever. But nomading looks different for everyone. This is just our experience and what we found. When we set off in April 2024, for us, we had already planned in a trip around the US and some trips around Europe. We did have a date in mind. We knew we needed to be in Rome by October because we'd already booked a cruise. So it was really about how we got there and how much we could do before then. Again, in the US, when we left, we already had a cruise booked in June. So we left April 20th and we already had an Alaska cruise booked for June. It was about the middle of June, if I remember rightly. So we knew we had that period of time to try and do as much around America as we could before we left. So that meant we moved at a pretty good pace.
We moved at a very fast pace. Most stops were for a couple of days or 3 days.
I think we did one break in Palm Springs. I think that was like 7 days.
And that was about it. And then, for example, in Glacier, we had to go to 4 different hotels in 6 days or something. So fast travel, it definitely was.
Yeah, we had we averaged, I guess, about 4 nights, I think, in each stop, which wasn't ideal, but we only had so much time before we had to be in Alaska or in Vancouver to do the Alaska cruise. So we ended up moving at a pretty fast pace.
Yeah.
And saw a lot of national parks, a lot of cities.
A lot of snow.
There was a lot of snow.
A lot of wildlife.
And a lot of driving.
Yeah.
We took Amtrak for most of the routes, but we did rent cars in between as well.
And a couple of flights.
And some internal flights as well. So it was a lot. And I think by the time we got to Vancouver and got to Alaska, we were already getting a little bit tired.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of elements of that. We were tired of unpacking and packing.
Oh, I was.
Yeah.
Because I was the one doing it.
And tired of getting used to a new place, groceries, supermarkets, restaurants, hotel beds, and everything else. I think we're also tired. There's an element of, if you're in a place for 2 or 3 days, you're going to go and see everything you want to go and see. So you're going to go and see all of the big attractions, and then because you're going to run out of time, and then you move on to the next place. And I think by the time we'd done our American adventure, there was almost a bit of overload.
Yeah, I think we started out like we were on vacation. So if you go on vacation, you typically want to go and see as much as you can, do as much as you can, experience as much as you can during that vacation time. And that's okay because that's only for a week or 2 weeks or however long you've got. And I think there's a real big mindset change to saying, actually, I'm not on vacation, this is my life. And you can't move at that pace, or maybe you can. I mean, let us know in the comments what your experience is.
We can't.
But we soon found out we couldn't. It was just too much. We had a great time. We both look back now, even a year on, and we're like, wow, that was such a great experience. And there's still a whole load of places in the US that we didn't get to, that we want to go back and see. Because even though we lived there for 20 years, we didn't get to go to a lot of places because, life and work and all that other stuff that gets in the way. So I think for us, I'm so glad that we did it.
Yeah, don't regret it.
I don't regret anything that we did at all, but it soon got tiring.
It got old, and it got old fast.
By that time, we joined the cruise in Alaska, and again, that was another week of go, 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 really. We were in ports every other day, seeing amazing things, wildlife, whatever. And then headed to the UK. We did have a little bit of a break in the UK, but we were still running around visiting people. And then again, we already had planned our trip across Europe to get to Rome to get on the cruise there. That was already pre-planned. And again, we moved across Europe pretty quickly. I think we left the UK at the end of August, and we had to get on the cruise in October. And in that time, we went to the Netherlands, Czech Republic, Austria,
5 stops
Italy.
in Austria.
Yeah, we were in Austria
2 stops in Italy.
But again, we were only in one place, I think, like 5 nights, I think, was probably the longest.
It was a bit longer than it was in America, but it was still pretty.
It was still pretty fast. And we were taking trains in between that time too. We did everything on public transport. We didn't fly. So we were taking trains as well. So anyway, we had already planned in a month in Dubai at the end of that cruise, because the cruise was originally supposed to take us from Rome to Dubai through the Suez Canal. Sadly, because of events in the Middle East, that was cancelled and didn't happen. But we already had plans from Dubai onwards, so we still had to get to Dubai. So we ended up flying to Dubai. And by the time we reached Dubai, I think we were both a bit...
We needed deeper.
We needed to decompress. So we did have a month in Dubai. Now, that time actually went really quickly. But
we had like 24 nights just in
Dubai,
the Grand Hyatt.
But we started to get a bit of cabin fever.
Yes. And I think this is we're still trying to work out how many days is the right balance for us. If you imagine your own vacation, if you go somewhere for 2 weeks, you might plan in a day by the pool, a day going to see sights, a day going on a tour, another day by the pool, a day shopping, wherever you are and whatever you want to do. And you probably, we've done that on more than one occasion. And we've got to the end of the vacation and say, I need a vacation because I'm so worn out from my last vacation. And you can't do that if you're doing full-time travel. If you imagine living your whole life and doing a tour and going somewhere every single day, imagine you're not working now, and imagine all that you do is visit new places every single day of your life. It would be impossible to manage.
It's just stimulation overload, and I think that's a big mindset shift to get away from, I'm not on vacation, I can catch my breath, I can take my time, I've not got this long here and I've got to do everything I can possibly do, because that used to be me at least anyway, it was my mindset when we went on vacation. It was like, how can I cram in as many things and new experiences as possible whilst we're on vacation? And probably it was me that drove that it was a mistake to try and keep doing that. But you don't know unless you find out.
Never regret things you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Never regret things that you haven't done. No, is it?
Other way round.
Other way round.
Regret things you've done, not the things you haven't done.
That's what she said.
So it's really about finding your pace, because we found in Dubai, I think we started to get a little bit bored.
Yes, and the same in KL. And
Well, we had a little bit more go then, and then by the time we got to KL, we had 2 months planned in Kuala Lumpur, which was the longest we had been in one place for over a year. And that was deliberate because we knew we needed to take care of some healthcare things, but we also knew we needed a breather.
Yes.
But until this point, we had literally planned all of this before we left the preceding April. So we had planned a year's worth ahead of travel and where we were going to be at what times. There's lots of reasons around why you should or shouldn't do that. Again,
we're planners.
That's another discussion for another time. But yeah, we're planners. But we got to KL, did the medical stuff, and after about a month easily, bearing in mind we were at the hospital a lot. Again,
we spent 19 days at the hospital.
We were starting to kick our heels a bit.
Yeah.
And be a bit, what should we do? What should we do? And again, I think that comes down to the mindset shift.
Well, I think there's certain places where you can take an extended break and recharge the batteries, and there's certain places where you're just going to zip through. Like, I think we've got, after this, we're doing an extended stay in Chiang Mai, and then we're going to zip through Chiang Rai, Laos. We've got a couple of stops in Laos, and then we're going to zip through
We are zipping through Vietnam. We've been to Vietnam before, but we are going to be moving pretty fast.
Pretty fast all the way through Vietnam. Then we've got go to Singapore for the Singapore Grand Prix, and then we go from Singapore to Florida by New York, and we've got an extended break in Florida. Now, I think we've learned that if you do some going and move at quite a quick pace, then you need to build in periods where you're going to have a bit of a downtime. And we're having a couple of months in Florida.
Yeah, and if you are at the stages where you're planning, and you are planners like we are, you might want to consider doing some fast travel and then some slower travel, just to see which you like the best, and decide if you are a stayer or a goer. That doesn't sound very good, does it? For us, I think we're finding that balance, because 2 months in Kuala Lumpur was too long, I think.
So what do you think? We're here at the moment. We're in a hotel in Bangkok, and we've got 3 weeks here, and that was going to be 5 weeks, but we're actually going back for a wedding back to the UK. So that's kind of eaten into that time.
And that was a last minute change of plan.
Yeah.
That wasn't planned at...
That was planned last month.
The time we planned everything else, yeah. But if we'd had 5 weeks here, I think we probably would have got bored.
Yeah, I think...
We probably would have planned a side trip somewhere else.
Yeah, we're seeing plenty of Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to other places. We've done some adventures. We've got another one planned on Saturday. I'm not sure whether we would have not made changes to our plans.
I think we probably would. We probably would have headed to a beach area or gone somewhere else. And that is the beauty about the life of full-time travel. You do have the ability to pivot and decide, well, if I'm bored or I don't like somewhere, unless you're committed to accommodation that's non-refundable, then you can change your plans. Go ahead and do whatever you want to do and go somewhere different. And that's one of the great features of this lifestyle.
Another thing is, and without going off subject, is if you book things with credit card points, they're normally cancelable pretty conveniently. So we did have 5 weeks booked here, and because we booked them on points, we could just cancel that, get the points back, and then use those points to fly back to the UK.
So I mentioned in KL that we were starting to get a little bit bored. So what can you do if you do start to feel a little bit bored? Well, we planned a trip to Ipoh, which was just a couple hours away by train. Now, this did mean that we were paying double for accommodation because we already had our Airbnb booked and paid for. That was done. And we ended up paying for a hotel in Ippo as well. In that instance, that wasn't so much of a big deal because the hotel in Ippo was pretty inexpensive.
$70 a night.
And that was an expensive hotel. Honestly, we could have stayed for like $30 or $40 a night there easily. And the train there was, I think, $8 each way or something. So, you know, it was a pretty inexpensive side trip. But I'm glad we did it, just for a change of scenery and a bit of mental stimulation. I mean, we have things that we do on the road. We've got hobbies that we do. But even so, I think we felt a little bit like 2 months was too long.
2 months was definitely... I think it depends upon the place you go to. I don't think we're going to go to Laos and we're going to Luang Prabang and Vientiane, and we've only got short stops there. Now, we've never been to either of those places.
No. But I don't think either of them are places we want to go to for a month, you know. Or longer. Interesting 3 weeks here in Bangkok. I'm ready to move on. We've done things, but I'm honestly ready to move on somewhere else.
Yes.
So maybe 3 weeks or a month is going to be that sweet spot for us. Maybe a little bit of fast travel, then a little bit of slowing down is better. I kind of feel like that's going to be our vibe.
I think if you go too fast, it's difficult to slow down. But if you book too slow, it's easier to speed back up.
Yes, yeah.
By booking side trips or changing plans. When we do planning, we tend to book some things that are fixed, like the Singapore Grand Prix.
Or a cruise.
Or a cruise.
Something that's a fixed date.
Yeah, or we've got a couple of elephant things that are coming up, and you've got to pay in advance, and we've got to be in a certain place on a certain day. But that gives us the freedom to change the plans around in between those fixed points. And I think that we are planners. We've got everything planned through till we're in 2027 now.
In our heads, it's not booked, but yeah, we've got plans up until 2027. So, you know, and even beyond that we know there's places we want to go beyond that, and kind of an idea in our heads about where we'll go at those times.
I think that we're less afraid now to make changes to the plans. But I'd rather build in too much time and take out some of that time and go somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good plan. Again, I mean, I guess the point we're trying to make is, if you're in your early stages of planning and starting this process, then have a think about what you really prefer. And I guess, like I said, I thought that we would be, you know, going and doing things, and some people do. I just don't think that's sustainable. I have an autoimmune disease, and I get tired pretty easily, honestly, and I'm not going to be doing things, abseiling or jumping up mountains or whatever. We're not whitewater rafting and.
Look, I thought we had that book for tomorrow.
Things like that. No, we're not doing that.
No.
So we're not big travel adventurers either. But there's only so many times you can go and sit in a coffee shop or walk around a mall or keep repeating things. But ultimately, this is life. It's not a vacation.
And I think that's the lesson there. If you imagine that you didn't work and you stayed in your own house for a year, would you go out and see something new every day? Or would you go out every 2 days or 3 days or every week? And imagine taking all your chores and responsibilities. You don't have to wash up. You don't have to pressure wash the drive. You don't have to do maintenance on the car or any of that. Take all of that away, and you've just got free time for a year in your house. What would you do? What would you do? And that's kind of this life. One thing that we did before we set off on this journey is that we did some trial runs. We did some trial runs on packing to make sure we could travel with what we had, and whether we enjoyed it speed-wise and visiting various other places.
And we didn't kill each other.
But that's another video. I'm still alive at this stage.
We've also tried to have some kind of portable hobbies as well. So, like I did cross stitch, or that's reasonably portable. We travel with a carry-on and a backpack, so there's only so much we can carry. I'm also into photography, so I've got a full-size DSLR as well. Again, it's a bit of a pain to carry, but that's another story. But we do have hobbies. James's hobby is YouTube that he drags me into. But you are editing the videos, and we'd already talked about before we left having something to occupy spare time. But even despite that, I still feel like for us 2 months was too long in one place.
If we hadn't
But
had
5
the
days is too
medical,
little.
we would have gone stir crazy.
I think we would, yeah, we absolutely would. If you kind of relaxing people, like you're happy to go and sit by the pool for days and or the beach, then that'd be fine. We don't really do that either. We do a bit of that, but in that circumstance, I think that the apartment we booked in Kuala Lumpur had a rooftop pool and a gym and a co-working space and all this stuff that we thought we'd use, and we didn't. We didn't use it at all. I was convinced we'd go to the pool, and we didn't, even though we had time to. I don't really know why we didn't. We just didn't do it.
No, we just didn't.
I don't know if it's because we were in a city, and in my head, you only go and sit by the pool if you're on a beach.
I just don't think we're massively...
We just don't sit around and do anything.
Yeah.
But we tried to come up with kind of portable hobbies as well that would keep us a little bit more occupied. You obviously want to keep your brain occupied. No one wants to sit here doom scrolling 24/7. So I still read books too occasionally, even though they're on my iPad. But you need to consider things to keep your mind occupied as well.
And you need to have roles.
Yes.
Without going off subject and going into other videos, there are still chores to be done, and there are still roles like finance, spreadsheets, planning. Planning takes up so much time. You need to consider how much time to plan your journeys. What we try and do is we try and have enough time so that we don't consider what we're going to do in Bangkok until we get to Bangkok, because for us, one of the worst things was you're in KL, and instead of doing things in KL, we're planning things for the next place. We would rather get to Bangkok, take a day, come up with a plan, do those things, move on to the next place, come up with a plan and do those things. Now that can't always be done. We booked a train that only ran at certain days, and we had to book it when we were in KL. But for the majority of things, you can book within a few days.
Especially if you've got an extended period.
Yeah, if you've got enough time to.
We normally choose our locations based on a rough idea of, I'm attracted to go into this place because of X, Y, and Z. So, for example, in Bangkok, we knew we wanted to go to the Death Railway because we didn't get a chance to go there last time we were here. So we knew that was a given, that whatever way we did it, we were going to definitely go there. But other things, we've waited till we got here to have a look around. And it doesn't, like James said, it doesn't take up your planning time then in your previous location. Even when we were fast moving in Europe, we pretty much did the same thing. That might mean that we use the time on the train to look at our next destination and what we thought we might do there, or we just take it easy on the first day we get there and accept that we'll have a rest day, but that rest day is going to be looking at what other things we're going to do while we're here. But it's really about finding that balance that works for you.
I think the other thing about the planning is that there are going to be things that you definitely want to do that you're going to book on the days that you are here in wherever it is. We're in Bangkok. And then there are going to be things that maybe you'll take or leave and just go with the flow. So those things you've got to plan in, and then you can fit the other things in around it to take away the boredom.
Mm-hmm. So what have you found, if you full-time travel, is your perfect time in a location. What's your preference? Let us know in the comments what you like to do and what your tips are on avoiding boredom on the road.
So like, subscribe, and avoid any more boredom by watching the next video.
See you next time.